Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Someone requested on my Radha Krishna video if I could make a video on Karn and discuss a few on-screen adaptations focused on him. I thought that was a great idea. Karn is a fascinating character, and I think he definitely deserves his own show. In this video, I'll discuss the 2015 series Suryaputra Karn, talking about things that they did well, things I thought they could have improved, and what I believe an ideal adaptation of Karn's story could look like. Let's first discuss who Karn is and why he deserves an on-screen adaptation at all. I consulted 2 versions of the Mahabharata and 1 version of the Ramayana for this video, and I'll put my citations in the description if you're interested in reading them. One day, Princess Kunti received a divine boon that would allow her to have children by chanting a magic mantra. Depending on who she invoked in the mantra, that deity would be the father of her child. Kunti's firstborn was a boy, and the boy's father was the sun god. Kunti quickly realized that this baby could pose a problem because she was unmarried. What would people say? What would people think if they saw her with a baby? With a heavy heart, Kunti placed her baby in a basket and let the basket drift down a river. A childless couple found the baby and adopted him. They were charioteers, meaning their job was to drive chariots for royals and noblemen. The little boy Karn had a penchant for archery and aspired to study the art of warfare. But he was often deterred because of what his family did. He was not of the warrior caste, even though he secretly was. At one point, Karn and his foster father, Adhirat, approached the royal sage Dronacharya with the desire to admit Karn to Drona's school. Dronacharya refused, saying that he only taught princes of the warrior caste. Karn was disheartened, but not discouraged. He approached the sage Parshuram instead, who taught military skills to those within the priestly or Brahmin caste. Karn was careful this time and lied about his background, saying he was of the Brahmin caste. Parshuram accepted Karn as his disciple, but later found out that Karn was not a Brahmin. One day, the sage Parshuram fell asleep in Karn's lap. An insect began biting Karn's thigh. Karn remained still so as to not wake his guru, but his thigh started to bleed. Parshuram awoke and said, "You're not a Brahmin. Only a warrior could remain still in the midst of such pain. You lied to me." Parshuram cursed Karn that although Karn learned the mantra that invoked the deadly weapon, the Brahmastra, Karn would forget it at the moment he needed it most. At that point, Karn had become an ace archer and attended a sports day or tournament when the princes of Hastinapur showcased their military skills for the kingdom. Some of these princes included the Vandals, or Karn's younger brothers, but he didn't know that, and neither did they. Everyone was invited to the tournament. Karn went with a desire to showcase his skills along with the princes. He was proud of them. Karn said, "Arjun, I will show greater skill than you have displayed." Duryodhana embraced Karn, and Karn replied, "I am grateful, O king. Only 2 things I seek, your love and a single combat with Arjun." Arjun then challenged Karn. But before their fight could begin, the sage Kripacharya interrupted, asking Karn to introduce himself and his background. Karn hesitated, and Duryodhana said, "If the combat cannot take place because Karn is not a prince, that is easily remedied. I crowned Karn as the king of Ang today." When it was revealed that Adhirat was Karn's father, Bhim said, "You're just the son of a charioteer. "You're not worthy to fight or die by Arjun's hand." This was, of course, Karna's greatest insecurity. Duryodhana retorted that one's birth isn't the mark of a warrior, but his actions are. Karna has the marks of a great warrior. Duryodhana then took Karna into his chariot and drove away. From then on, Karna remained by Duryodhana's side so as to repay his debt to him. Unfortunately, Karna's promise came at a price. Karna watched and participated in Duryodhana's many atrocities. These crimes led to a massive war between Duryodhana and his cousins, the Pandavas. Again, those were Karna's younger brothers, but no one knew that except for Kunti. Karna, true to his word, stood by Duryodhana during the war. Even after Karna learned about his true identity from his birth mother Kunti and Lord Krishna, Karna was not persuaded to change sides. He felt obliged to remain by Duryodhana's side even if it meant killing his younger brother Arjun. During his final battle with Arjun, Karna forgot the mantra to invoke the Brahmastra weapon, and Arjun killed him. Before we dive deeper into these events, which are very dramatic and interesting, let's first discuss Karna's psychology. What does Karna really want? Karna wants to prove himself as an archer by battling Arjun and also make his friend Duryodhana happy. He says at one point, "I am a mere soldier who loves my friends and hates my enemies. I will stand here and fight." To be fair, Karna has admirable qualities. He's hardworking, resilient, brave, talented, and generous. For example, he regularly practices giving charity. After his meditation each day, Karna promises to give anyone anything they ask for. One day, Lord Indra came to Karna in disguise and asked for Karna's divine earrings and armor that protected Karna in battle. Karna cut these pieces off his body and donated them without hesitation. But when he joins forces with Duryodhana, Karna changes in important ways. For example, Karna participates in Duryodhana's conspiracies and atrocities. He's privy to Duryodhana, Shakuni, and Dushasana's plans to burn the Pandavas alive in a wax house, lure the Pandavas into a dangerous dice game, and strip Draupadi in front of everyone. This is actually Karna's idea. When Yudhishthir agrees to wager Draupadi in the dice game, Duryodhana, his brothers, and Karna shouted with exultation. Karna says, "Draupadi has now come into Shakuni's possession. Even the clothes they have on are now Shakuni's property. Dushasana, seize the garments of the Pandavas and the robes of Draupadi and hand them over to Shakuni." And then Dushasana started to pull on her sari. Karna also helps the Kauravas kill Arjun's son Abhimanyu in a brutal, animalistic way. Abhimanyu pierced Karna's armor, and then 6 warriors, including Karna, closed upon Abhimanyu, overpowering him, and they killed him together. And having killed him, they danced around his dead body like savage hunters, exulting over their prey. Now, these events are quite dramatic, and I think we have to ask ourselves, why does Karna do these things? I think there are a few reasons. 1. Karna can't change Duryodhana's mind. Karna occasionally tries to convince Duryodhana to take a different tact against the Pandavas. For example, when Duryodhana is in a frenzied state of rage and is wildly creating conspiracies, Karna says, "This is futile talk. Strategies like these won't work. Instead, let's launch a surprise attack. Attack them like warriors do before they can acquire too many allies like Krishna and his Yadav army. Let's take the heroic way out." But of course, Duryodhana doesn't listen. Karn is stuck in a state of cognitive dissonance where his actions don't match his innermost thoughts. He'd rather face the Pandavas head-on, but his friend is stealthy and wants to eliminate the Pandavas by any means necessary. In other cases, Karn experiences the bystander effect, in which he isn't the mastermind behind these conspiracies, but he goes along with it and doesn't stop it. 2. Karn feels indebted to Duryodhan. I believe that Karn is a little hesitant to oppose Duryodhan too strongly. He loves his friend. Duryodhan was the only one who stood up for him. We could actually draw a parallel between Karn and Kumbhakarn in the Ramayana. Kumbhakarn at first stands up to Ravan and requests that Ravan send Sita back to Sri Ram after Ravan kidnaps her. Ravan refuses and reminds Kumbhakarn of his filial and patriotic duty to support him. Kumbhakarn believes that Ravan is wrong but still agrees to fight for his older brother. Vibhishan, on the other hand, pursues righteousness above all else. When Vibhishan opposes Ravan and Ravan refuses to listen to his brother, Vibhishan surrenders to Sri Ram because he wants to avoid unnecessary destruction in Lanka. He also recognizes that Sri Ram is the Lord, and surrendering to him won't be a mistake. So we could say that in this context, Karn chose the route of Kumbhakarn over Vibhishan. 3. Karn starts to believe Duryodhan's poisonous words. Karn's situation teaches us about the power of bad company on our thoughts. In the Ramayana, Manthara poisons Queen Kaikeyi's mind against Sri Ram, causing Kaikeyi to demand that Ram be exiled for 14 years. Previously, Kaikeyi's relationship with Ram was loving, but Manthara's poisonous words eventually get to the queen. It's possible that listening to Duryodhan rant and rave about the Pandavas every day influenced how Karn felt about the Pandavas himself. Karn himself says, "I hate my enemies," which could be alluding to the Pandavas. And there's one part when Bhishma suggests splitting Hastinapur into 2 pieces, one for the Kauravas and one for the Pandavas. And Karn flies into a rage, because he can't bear the idea of giving a portion of the kingdom to the Pandavas. Let's now talk about Karn's final turning point, when he learns about the truth of his parentage. When war appears inevitable between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, Kunti reveals to Karn that she is his mother. She says, "To live in dependence on Dhritarashtra's sons does not befit you. Join Arjun and be one of the kings of the realm. May you and Arjun put down the wicked. The whole world will be at your feet." Karn always felt inferior to others because they called him a charioteer's son. When the truth of his parentage is revealed, he again experiences cognitive dissonance, or an inconsistency between his actions and thoughts. But he rationalizes staying on the side of evil. He says, "I urged the Kauravas into this war. How can I desert them now? Could there be blacker treachery and baser ingratitude? It's my dharma to stay. But I promise to only kill Arjun. You will still have 5 sons in the end." When Bhishma finds out about Karn's parentage, he says, "It is proper that you befriend the Pandavas. Therein lies the right path for you. You are their brother. With the closing of my part in this war, may the chapter of your enmity also close." But Karn says, "You must permit me to repay with my life the debt I owe to Duryodhan for his love and trust." Finally, Lord Krishna himself offers Karn a few opportunities to change sides, saying, "The victory of the Pandavas is certain." But Karn refuses, saying, "O Keshav, I will not do anything that causes displeasure to Duryodhan. Know that I am engaged in Duryodhan's welfare and have given up my life for him." So as we can see, not even the Lord can persuade Karn to change sides, and Karn seals his fate. I think that the final battle between Arjun and Karn is actually the most interesting part involving Karn. During this final battle, Lord Krishna makes everything clear. Karn's chariot wheel gets stuck in the mud, and he asks Arjun to wait before attacking while Karn extracts the wheel. But Krishna laughs and says, "It is well that you too remember that there are things like fair play and chivalry. Now that you are in difficulty, you remember them indeed. But when you and Duryodhan and Dushasan and Shakuni dragged Draupadi to the hall of assembly and insulted her, how was it you forgot them utterly? What did Dharm tell you when violent hands were laid on Draupadi and you enjoyed the sight? Did you not then mock her, saying, 'Your husbands have left you unprotected, go and marry another husband'? You acquiesced in the plot to burn the Pandavas alive when sleeping in the palace of wax. When a mob of you surrounded the young Abhimanyu and shamelessly slew him, was that chivalry? Wicked man, do not talk now of chivalry and fair play, for you have never honored them. Arjun, stop wasting time. Shoot him now." I think this scene is so powerful because Karn's life literally flashes before his eyes, and he can no longer hide from the consequences of his choices. Krishna's words are very clear to all of us, and we can finally put Karn to rest. And now that we've discussed who Karn is in the Mahabharata text itself, let's analyze how he's been portrayed on screen. Suryaputra Karn is a televised adaptation that launched in 2015. It follows Karn from his birth to death. Since there are so many differences between the show and the original text, I'll just talk about some high-level themes that shape Karn's character and life trajectory in the show. First, Karn is portrayed as a golden boy who can do no wrong. His good qualities are amplified, and his negative qualities are all but gone. This version of Karn bonds with the Pandavas when they're all young. He's decent and principled, and the audience completely empathizes with him. He says things like, "I've experienced a life that is difficult, Arjun, which is not different from war. I have the capability to fight, but not the right. In Hastinapur, birth is everything. That might be unfair, but so is life." He also has a love interest named Vrushali, and their relationship is adorable, but kind of brief. She comes in and out of his life. On that note, Karn's Sangini is also a televised adaptation of Karn's story with a focus on his romantic relationship with a woman named Urvi. I actually haven't seen this show, but someone else made a video analyzing it, which I will link below. But my understanding is that Karn's Sangini was made to further highlight Karn as a romantic figure, in case you want that. But in any case, let's go back to Suryaputra Karn. In the beginning, Duryodhan attempts to bribe Karn into friendship a few times, which fail. The only reason Karn pursues archery is to avenge the death of his brother Shon at the hands of Hastinapur's elders. Before he dies, Shon demands a promise from Karn, saying, "Until there is a change in our society, you won't have peace. Avenge my death, break down the caste system, and change society forever." On sports day, Duryodhan defends Karn, and Karn befriends Duryodhan not out of ego or pride, but love for his family. He believes that Duryodhan will help him create societal change. So when these two join forces, Karn is still made to look innocent using narrative framing. All of Karn's actions that lead to his demise, namely those associated with Duryodhan, are rationalized in one way or another. Karn is completely left out of planning certain conspiracies, only to find out afterward. For instance, after the wax palace incident, Karn gets angry at Duryodhan, tries to speak up, but is reminded of his promise to stand by Duryodhan no matter what. And this pattern happens again and again and again. Karn goes through a cycle of emotions where he cares about Duryodhan's victims and rebukes his friend, but in the end, Karn doesn't change anything. He's still a bystander to evil. I have to give props to the writers, though, for consistency. Karn's actions do feel logical within the context of the show. I also like their use of Lord Krishna in the show as well, because he pops up at certain points to educate Karn on the importance of choices. At one point, Krishna says, "It's difficult to make the right choice, but it's essential. Be careful who you choose as your friend or your enemy. Our actions inform who we are. We must bear the consequences." This lesson is, of course, highly relevant to Karn. Kunti and Krishna in turn reveal to Karn his true parentage, using similar language to the Mahabharata text. And Karn refuses, as he does in the text, saying, "I can't change sides now. Duryodhan gave me shade from the heat of the world." Finally, Karn dies, and these final episodes are quite satisfying. The back and forth between Karn and Krishna clarifies everything. Krishna uses language like that of the Mahabharata, and there's even a follow-up episode where Karn speaks to Krishna at length about why it wasn't enough for Karn to be a quote-unquote good person. Krishna says, "I tried to change what was supposed to happen, but your promises, curses, and sins brought you to this point. Your silence was your sin. During Draupadi's disrobing or Abhimanyu's killing, you never raised your voice or lifted your weapons. Bystanders to evil wreak havoc on society." So even this Karn, who is essentially perfect, couldn't be absolved of sin, and I liked that. However, here's my main issue with the show. This version of Karn doesn't exist. This wholesome, selfless, and pure-hearted man deserves the world, but he's not actually Karn. This person makes us question the caste system and why one's birth shouldn't dictate one's life path. But the show doesn't really teach us about how toxic friendship corrupts you, which is something that Karn should teach us, in my opinion. This show's purpose is to show Karn as a hero who is a victim of circumstances. And I think there are a few unintended consequences of that. 1. This show causes viewers to misinterpret the Mahabharata. When they realize that Karn is not like this in the real story, they are likely to be disappointed. Portraying Karn as more likable impedes our ability to see Karn as a cautionary tale. It can also make other characters look worse. For example, according to 2 versions of the Mahabharata that I read, Draupadi actually allows Karn to participate in her Swayamvar. Karn attempts the archery challenge and simply fails at it, albeit by a small margin. Suryaputra Karn and B.R. Chopra's Mahabharata both portray Draupadi refusing to let Karn participate, perhaps to make Karn look more sympathetic. But I'm wondering how much that added to the story. I feel like the original is great the way it is. 2. It dumbs down the audience. By oversimplifying Karn, creators assume that we can't handle his moral complexity. South Asian people do expect more from mythological shows than pure entertainment. We expect these shows to be a guide for correct thoughts and behavior. We want to be able to take away clear lessons from each episode, such as who should we emulate and who should we avoid. What about Karn? Should we emulate him or not? It's not so simple. As we discussed in the beginning, Karn has some admirable qualities. He is hardworking, charitable, and committed, but he also misunderstands what it means to be a true friend. By staying at Duryodhana's side through all his atrocities, Karn is part of the problem. By not taking a strong stance against Duryodhana, Karn enables his friend to do more evil. Also, the fact that Karn has a difficult life doesn't excuse him from being a bystander to all of this evil. 3. Romanticizing Karn opens the door to romanticizing anyone. Romanticization doesn't just mean adding a love interest, but rather it means softening them, justifying their actions, and making them seem more empathetic. This can be done with framing, music, and aesthetics. By romanticizing Karn, it opens the door to romanticizing anyone like Duryodhana or even Shakuni. It's hard to imagine romanticizing either of those two characters, but I honestly think it's possible, and I don't think we should do that. I think Karn deserves a better show or mini-series focused on his inner journey, his psychology, and how his decisions lead to his ultimate demise. One way to frame his story could be that of the anti-hero. According to Western media experts, an anti-hero is a darker, more conflicted version of the traditional hero. The conflict raging inside them is exactly what keeps their humanity intact and makes them redeemable to the audience, for their flaws and many facets allow the viewer to relate to their personality. You might be familiar with anti-heroes in Western and Indian media who do quote-unquote bad things, but are still admirable or relatable in some way. I think Karn fits pretty well into this framework. In this proposed imaginary show, Karn would constantly fight an inner battle between his conscience, represented by Lord Krishna, and his actions. At each step, Karn would decide what to do, but slowly set himself on a path toward destruction. It could take inspiration from Shakespearean tragedies like Hamlet or Macbeth, where our central character fights inner demons and ultimately loses, leading to massive bloodshed in drama. I think that would be a very interesting show. In summary, I believe Karn is neither a hero nor a complete villain. I think Karn's story is fascinating because it demonstrates the power of bad company. When you surround yourself with people who spew vitriol, you might start to believe it, or at least tolerate it. And when evil gets out of hand, you might enable it. Karn also teaches us that no one can force you to have correct understanding prematurely. Lord Krishna tries to reason with Karn that he doesn't need to die in the war. He doesn't need to stay on the side of evil, but Karn chooses not to listen. He's just not ready. He's complex and morally gray, but so are we. We've all been belittled or insulted at some point. We've probably all had friends or allies that weren't good for us. Did we call them out on their terrible decisions? Maybe not. That's pretty hard to do. The Bhagavad-Gita describes the law of karma and the fact that all of our actions have consequences. The Mahabharata further teaches us that dharma or duty protects us. It's better to do your own duty, however imperfectly, than to assume the duties of another person, however successfully. Because where there is dharma, there is victory.